guys, how's it going? Just want to cover some of my Waterstones, kind of show you some details about them. Without further ado, we'll just get straight to it. Here we have the King Waterstones. All I own is the 1K and the 6K. This is a great stone combination right here. You just go from this to this. Some people are probably thinking, oh, why don't you have a stone in between that, or then a stone before this, and a stone after that, and this. Well, you got to understand with Waterstones and with any sharpening abrasive or anything, you want to maintain your setup down to the minimum. So you only want a 3-stone setup or a 2-stone setup. Any more than that, and all your inconsistencies freehand can add up. So you're looking for jumps. You're looking for grit jumps. When manufacturers offer you a whole range of Waterstones, you're not meant to buy each one and then sharpen on each one to get to the mirror finish. Okay, you're looking for grit jumps. All right. So a 1K to a 6K, that's a good grit jump. All we would need is a coarse stone, and we would have our 3-stone setup. If you can get your stone setup to a 2-stone setup, then that's really ideal. So King Waterstones are super cheap. You know, I use these kind of just for carbon steels. That's about it. And they're kind of the first stones I started on. You know, they're so cheap. They're like the Mora of sharpening stones. You should probably have at least one. So decent stones. Look for these on Amazon. Not my favorite by any means. This guy right here especially seems to cut incredibly slow. It wears really, really fast, so it'll dish out on you when you sharpen just probably one side to a burr. So kind of annoying, but yeah, great stones nonetheless. It's kind of where everybody starts, I feel. Next up, you know, we did elaborate on that 2-stone setup. Oh my God, check out this beast right here. This is a big old kind of community stone. This is a Naniwa 600 grit stone. It's a really great coarse stone, because for 600 grit you still get a great finish on there. I guess that's comparable grit to like a fine on the Norton Tri-Stone, the soft Arkansas, which is also about 600 grit. But awesome stone. Combine that with, look at this guy, huh? This is a Naniwa Green Brick of Joy. Cool stone. This is a 2K finish. Such an underrated finish right here, because what 2K does is it's kind of in between a sharpening stone grit and a finishing stone grit. So you still get that great bite and cutting speed from the lower grit, but you also get some of that precision from the higher grit. So you would just go from 600 to 2K. So that's a fast jump. This is a great 2-stone setup, especially for carbon steel or low alloy stainless. This will definitely eat that stuff up. You know, great finishing, great feedback. These stones do dish, so you're definitely going to have to make sure you maintain them and keep them nice and flat. But great stones right here. If I had a ton of sharpening of simple knives to do, I mean, this would be where it's at, dude. That's awesome. But they're just not going to work too well on super steels. I played around with it, and it's not that they won't cut it. I mean, they will cut it. It's just so slow that any little micro inconsistency that you have will kind of add up. So if you've got really, really good consistency and awesome sharpening skills, you'll definitely be able to bring up an awesome edge. But I think that's just out of my skill range. I seem to just have a lot of difficulty pulling off some awesome edges with S30D and stuff with these stones right here. It just doesn't seem to cut it very fast, or if at all. I mean, geez. So we'll move these stones out of the way. Let's talk about some other stones. This stone right here, these stones, these are going to be your higher end clay stones. So those last stones were also clay stones, but these are kind of the higher end. These have a much harder bond, a vitrified bond, so it's brought to a much higher temp. So just stronger bond to the grit. These stones eat anything right here. These are stones made by a company in Kyoto. They seem to make several stones for different companies right here. 400 grit, 1200 grit. These stones finish much coarser than their grit rating. This is definitely not a 1200 grit stone. This is probably more of an 800 grit stone. Leaves a huge scratches, huge burr. Great stone though. This 400 grit probably has the best feedback of any Waterstone I've ever felt. Whenever someone's talking about feedback, they're basically talking about how you can feel it literally just cut the steel off the knife. And so this one gives you a lot of feeling when you're cutting on it. So great stone right here, very fast wearing. You're supposed to only use light pressure when you use this guy right here. But awesome, awesome stones. These two are great for pocket knives, especially super steel knives. They really seem to give you a really coarse finish, which is probably what you want with more of a little pocket knife, utility knife. This is not in this stone series. This is a Suhiro. Softer abrasive on this guy right here, but it seems to do okay with some super steels compared to the King Stone and the Naniwa Green Brick. So that's why I kind of include it in this setup. So you kind of notice that these are kind of setups for different knives and different steels. It's not that I'm using all these stones in sequence, which is confusing because some people are like, why do you have all these different stones? But you're supposed to use them depending on what knife you're sharpening and what qualities you want to bring out on that knife. Sharpening is such an underrated thing. Like people don't realize that you can completely change the properties of a knife depending on what edge finish you do, what geometry you do. It's really the hidden reason that kind of makes a knife perform that is not very well understood, since I feel like not enough people are sharpening their knives. But awesome stone setup right here. We'll go ahead and put that guy away. Also, something interesting about this stone, the stones are so abrasive that they will eat this stone flattener. So if you're looking into one of these kind of specialty stones right here, these Kyoto stones, you're going to need one of these 140 DMT diamond stone flatteners. So I'll put these guys away. We'll get to everybody's kind of favorite, the most well-known, the Naniwa Professional series. Used to be known as the Chazera series, which had the plastic base, and you actually get a little bit more abrasive with this guy right here. So if you can find the old stock of these on Amazon, jump on that like a beast. But this is a great kind of stone jump right here for kind of general use knives. You got your 400, 1K, 3K. Another option is you could switch this guy out for an 800 to get a better cutting speed over the 1K. But if you decide not to do a finishing stone, then this is a great setup right here. You can do your reprofiling here, and then you can do your 1K finish edge here. Or you could decide to jump up to a finishing stone that's 3K. So awesome setup. These definitely do not cut as fast as these specialty stones right here, and they leave you a better finish. But these also seem to load up, but you know, it's kind of a trade-off because they also don't dish as much, which is interesting. But they do seem to get some kind of glazing and loading. So that's why, at least with the Chozera, they included this helper stone or Nagura to help kind of clean it out, as well as maybe build up a slurry. Since these stones don't really build up a lot of slurry, that's kind of what you want in your finishing stone. You don't really need it as much for these stones right here. Your finishing stone, the slurry does help you kind of give you a more even finish. But cool stones nonetheless. Do not soak these guys in water. It will damage these stones. There's cracking issues with these guys. The magnesia bonder has an affinity for water, so it'll leak out in the water, kind of breaking up the structure of the stone, making it crack really easy. But great stones right here. One thing that I will bring up about these stones right here is when you're sharpening super steels or really hard steels, you lose feedback on these stones right here. So when you're actually sharpening on them, first off, they don't have the feedback that this stone has. But then when you are sharpening on those super steels, the feedback definitely drops down. So not sure if it even really feels like it's cutting it almost, but there is some kind of black metal filings on these stones. But great stones. I think if money weren't an object, a lot of us would all have these stones right here. But you know, they're pretty expensive. I would say they're only worth it if you do a ton of sharpening. If you don't, then I would probably maybe get I'd probably just bear through it with these guys right here or something. Never let your knife get dull. Move these guys out of the way. We'll kind of talk about this guy right here, and I'll leave the Chozera here to talk about it, because a lot of people think that if you buy the Super Stone, you're getting like a more budget-friendly Chozera. They're completely different. This is a magnesia bonded stone, resin bonded stone right here. They both say ceramic abrasive, but the bonder makes a huge difference. This stone is nothing like this stone, the Super Stone series, the entire series. So I talked about how these stones right here leave you a coarser finish. The Super Stones are the complete opposite. They leave you a higher finish than what they're grit rated to, but they also have kind of the drawback that these stones have in that they're very fast wearing, they dish very quickly, they kind of have a gummy feel to them. So not like the best feedback in the world, but they do leave you an incredible finish. So if you want to maximize the potential of the Superstone series, only use them for finishing stones. This is a 12K Superstone right here, and so I only use that for this guy right here. It's about the only thing it's good for, straight razor. It's just too high of a finish for anything that you want some bite to it. You can definitely do it. You can definitely sharpen up a knife and get incredible edge, incredible bite or whatnot. You'll lose that kind of pull cutting ability very quickly. The apex will just seem to round over even faster when you over polish a knife. So really just for straight razors. This stone right here technically should be a part of the Chazera series, but it's not. It's a pure magnesia stone, also known as the Snow White 8000 grit. Really, I would skip the 5K grit in the Chazera series, and I would just go for this guy. The 5K in the Chazera series is really kind of an odd duck. It does need a soak. That stone definitely needs a soak. But this stone doesn't, so I would go with this stone right here. It kind of keeps to the splash and go. I would go from 3K to the 8K. You could do that jump no problem. Just one problem is, you got to know what you're doing and why you want to go to 8K. I think for maybe woodworking and maybe some bushcrafting tasks, you can get an advantage out of a higher polish. You get that better push cutting ability, cleaner cuts, cleaner feathers and wood if you're making a fire. But otherwise, you're just significantly dropping that edge retention when you over polish or polish up too much. But just have a task in mind if you're going to use an 8K stone. Otherwise, for most uses, you're better off just using a 3K or just no finishing stone at all. Moving into, we talked about this diamond stone right here. Atoma, they make a whole bunch of different grits and stuff you can get into. And, they're just really, really expensive. And you only get one grit layer thick. Once that strips out, you're down to a plate of metal. So it definitely wears very quickly. They seem to really be best for just really, really coarse stuff. And I would just use them for flattening Waterstones. And, this thing is like 90 bucks. So it's probably not even the best. I think I bought this with the intention of grinding out knives, freehand. The thing is, it still takes a long time, especially if you got a ton of work to do. And not to mention, for the price of this, you can buy 2 of these Harbor Freight 1x30 belt sanders. So if you're using it for reprofiling or really heavy repair, you almost can't justify the cost of this guy when you can just get an actual power tool that'll just take care of it for you. Of course, everyone worries about drawing off the temper, but as long as you're intelligent about it, you're not going to ruin the temper of a knife. Just don't get your blade too hot. If it gets warm to the touch, stop. So there you go, diamond stone. Just use the coarse stuff. They have finer grit stuff like 1200 grit, but it just scratches so deep. I don't feel like you get a true 1200 grit edge of any quality. Of course, really what people have in mind when they use these is for super steels that are really, really hard to sharpen. But you don't get that great edge finish. That's where these guys come in right here. I haven't talked about these guys, and you're not going to find any YouTube videos on these. These are the new Naniwa Diamond Waterstones. So very cool. We'll talk about these guys in further detail. But really what they are is a resin-bound diamond abrasive. You get a very, very little amount of it. And it's kind of like the Superstone that I talked to you guys about. It has a very specific task in mind, except that these stones are incredibly expensive. These are the most expensive water stones I've ever bought. I think they go for 150 bucks each stone. But definitely some of my favorite stones, especially for super steels. We're talking past 4% vanadium or incredibly hard stuff. These stones seem to do stuff that other stones can't. But it's very specific. It's such a very specific stone. All you're trying to do is you're trying to take those super steels and take them to a much higher finish, and this will leave you a great polish on those stones. But they're incredibly slow cutting. They do not cut fast at all. They may not dish, but they load up pretty badly, which is why they include this stone right here. We'll talk in detail about these stones right here, but they do have a specific task in mind, and I have 2 of them, so they must not be too bad, right? We'll talk about the drawbacks and stuff on these guys. And we'll just do a full video on them. But we'll save that for later. Next up, we kind of have some strops. Different kinds of strops. Technically, these aren't stones, but we've got different kinds of strops here. This is a 1 micron diamond spray. This right here is a 0.25, so half of 0.5 micron on balsa wood. Then I got your classic green chromium oxide. And then I have your Bark River white compound here. All these are magnetic. You can clip them on there. Really, your most kind of versatile for knives is going to be this guy right here, the diamond spray 1 micron. I don't really think you need to go into all the different micron sprays or whatnot for general use. The clay stuff right here, just the pasted strop, it kind of comes in a waxy base compound. This is perfect for stuff like straight razors. Your diamond compound's a little too aggressive. You want a more comfortable shave. So you kind of want more of a roundy edge that this kind of gives you. For a utility knife, you want kind of more of that bite, so you go with the 1 micron. 1 micron is roughly about 16,000 grit. So it's definitely very, very fine. You're not finishing that entire bevel to that grit right there. You're just taking care of the teeth. You're just giving those teeth a nice polish there. Strops. Strops, very misunderstood. People think that you can just really make a knife that's maybe not super sharp, even sharp from just a strop. All a strop is going to do is just enhance whatever you've done beforehand. So if you have a really sharp knife, you strop it, it'll be even sharper. You have a kind of dull knife and you strop it, it's not going to make it any sharper. So your apex shape has to be really good to go before you jump to a strop. Also, strop can be used to kind of remove burr, stuff like that, but it just depends on how you use it. And that's just kind of a brief breakdown of some sharpening stuff I have. I mean, we didn't cover everything. We'd probably have to make like an hour-long video to cover all the stuff I got. But, I don't know. Probably get bored. Alright, guys. We'll talk later.